Sera Vance had been running for 3 months. Not from wolves, not from boarders or bounty hunters, or the kind of trouble that followed rogues through the territories. She was running from a feeling, a low, steady hum in the center of her chest, like a second heartbeat that wasn't hers. It started the night she crossed into the eastern ridge and saw a man standing at the tree line with his back to her, broad shoulders cutting a shape against the dark sky, and her whole body went still in a way it had never gone still before. She turned around and walked the other direction. She had been walking ever since. The grand convocation happened once every 10 years. 7 packs, 12 elders, 1 alpha king, all gathered at the valley grounds to renew their oaths and settle disputes that had piled up over the decade. Sera had no business being within 50 miles of it. She was rogue-born, unregistered, the daughter of a beta who had been stripped of his rank before she was old enough to understand what rank meant. She had no invitation. She had no pack name to offer at the border gate. She came anyway. The bond pulled her. That was the only honest answer she had. The hum in her chest had grown louder the closer she got to the valley, and she had stopped pretending she was going somewhere else. She told herself she would watch from the ridge. Just watch. See him from a distance, confirm to herself that it was real, that she was not imagining it, and then leave and spend the rest of her life building walls tall enough to keep the feeling out. She did not watch from the ridge. The border wolves caught her scent before she reached the outer tree line. 2 of them, young and well-trained, stepped out of the shadows with their hands raised in the formal stop position. They smelled the rogue mark on her immediately, that faint absence of pack scent that set unregistered wolves apart like a missing word in a sentence. They were not cruel. They were simply doing their jobs. They walked her into the valley grounds through the side entrance, past rows of assembled wolves standing in perfect pack formations, all facing the judgment stone at the center of the field. The ceremony was already underway. Cale Drayson, Alpha King of the 7 United Packs, sat on the stone like he had been carved into it, still, controlled, wearing authority the way other men wore skin. He was looking elsewhere when they brought her in. Then he wasn't. Their eyes met across the field, and the hum in Sera's chest became a roar for exactly 2 seconds before she pressed it down hard and locked it somewhere quiet. His expression did not change, not one muscle, but his hands, resting on the arms of the stone seat, went tight in a way she suspected no one else noticed. She noticed. The border wolves stopped her at the edge of the inner circle and announced her status to the assembled court. Rogue, unregistered. No invitation, no pack name, no legitimate reason to be present. Protocol was clear. Every wolf entering the inner circle during convocation was required to submit. Head lowered, 1 knee on the ground, throat angle exposed. It was not cruelty. It was the language the packs used to say, "I recognize your authority. I am not a threat." Sera was familiar with the gesture. She had 15 seconds to perform it before it became a formal offense. She counted the seconds out loud, slowly. Each number dropped into the silence of the field like a stone into still water. When she reached 15, she lifted her chin and looked Cale Drayson directly in the eye. The field erupted. 3 pack alphas spoke at once, their voices overlapping in outrage. Wolves shifted in their formations. The 2 elders closest to the inner circle leaned toward each other in urgent conversation. Only Cale did not move. He raised one hand, and the noise stopped, not slowly, not gradually, but immediately, like a door closing. He studied her the way a man studies something that should not exist but clearly does. "Explain yourself," he said. His voice was even, quiet, even. It carried across the field without effort, which was somehow more imposing than if he had shouted. Sera understood that the instruction was a small mercy, an invitation to give the court a reason to let this go cleanly. She understood he was offering her a way out. She did not take it. "I will not bow," she said, equally quiet, "to a king who rules under a law he has already broken." The silence that followed was a different kind of silence, not the shocked silence of before. This was the silence of 12 elders sitting very still, of 7 pack alphas suddenly not quite looking at each other, of everyone in the field becoming very careful about their breathing. The old law was the foundation under everything, older than packs, older than territories, Older than the title of Alpha King itself, it governed bonds, the rare and irreversible connections that sometimes formed between wolves regardless of rank, bloodline, or convenience. When a bond formed, the law was simple. A king had 30 days to claim or release. Claim meant standing before the bonded wolf and accepting the connection. Release meant formally severing it so both parties could move forward free and clean. Cale Drayson had done neither. For 3 months, everyone in the valley with functioning senses already knew it. The bond mark was visible on Sera's collarbone, a pale, faintly luminous shape that appeared the moment the connection locked and faded only at release or death. 12 elders had 12 sets of eyes. They had known for 3 months, and they had spent 3 months carefully not saying it out loud, because saying it meant acknowledging that their king had failed the most basic obligation of the old law, and that was a conversation none of them were ready to have. Sera had just made them ready. Cale sentenced her to the holding grounds. It was not exile. It was not punishment in the true sense. It was the move of a man with too many things at stake, and not quite enough courage yet. A formal detention that allowed him to postpone the question without answering it. Sera recognized it for exactly what it was, and she went without argument, without struggle, with her head still up as the border wolves walked her away from the inner circle. She had already done the thing she came to do. The bond hummed louder than ever. She hated it. She let them lead her through the dark. He came to the holding grounds after midnight. She heard him before she saw him, not with her ears, but with that interior compass, the one she could not turn off. She was already sitting up on the low bench when his shape appeared at the gate, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. He was not wearing the formal coat, just dark clothes, his collar loose, looking like something considerably less than a king, and considerably more like a person. He stood at the gate with his hands at his sides, and he looked at her with an expression she did not have a name for. "Why did you come?" he said finally. "Not why did you refuse, not why did you humiliate me before 7 packs. Why did you come?" It was the first honest question he had asked since the night on the eastern ridge when he turned and walked away, and they both knew it. Sera looked at him for a long time. "I was tired," she said. "I have been running for 3 months, and it isn't going away, and I was tired. If you had released me properly, I would have gone. I would have been fine, but you didn't release me." She paused. "You didn't claim me either. You just left the door open and walked off and expected me to keep standing in the doorway." He had no answer for that. She had not expected one. He left before sunrise, and she slept 3 hours and woke to footsteps. 12 sets of footsteps, measured and deliberate on the gravel path. The Elder Council arrived at the holding grounds at dawn. They did not go to the judgment hall. They did not send a messenger. They came themselves, all 12 of them, led by Elder Marin, the oldest wolf in the 7 territories, small and white-haired, and carrying 60 years of the old law in her memory, like a weapon she had never needed to draw until now. They stood in a line at the gate. Marin looked at the guard looked at the gravel and stepped aside. Fooled. The full convocation was called back to assembly an hour later. The valley filled again with 7 packs in their formations, 12 elders in their ceremonial positions, and the Alpha King on the judgment stone. Everything looked as it had the day before, the same architecture, the same order. Then the elders filed in. Marin walked past the throne. She kept walking until she stood beside Sera at the edge of the inner circle, and she turned and faced the court. The elder to her left watched her for one breath, then followed. Then the next, then the next. One by one, without a word passing between them, all 12 elders walked past Cale Drayson's throne and stood in a line beside a rogue girl with no pack name and a bond mark on her collarbone. It took 40 seconds. In those 40 seconds, the visual architecture of 7 packs quietly fell apart. Cale sat on the judgment stone and did not move. Marin did not raise her voice. She had never needed to raise her voice. She recited the relevant passage of the old law from memory, which she could do because she had known it for 60 years, and because some things are worth knowing exactly. She named what the law required. She named the timeline. She named what Cale had done, and, more importantly, what he had not done. She was not angry. Anger would have given him something to argue with. She was simply precise, the way a surgeon is precise, and her precision was more devastating than any accusation could have been. The bond was neither honored nor released, she said. The woman who bears the mark invoked her rights publicly. She withstood formal detention without recanting. The council recognizes her standing under the old law. She paused. The council does not recognize the Alpha King's authority over her person. The field was very quiet. Kale had two options. Everyone present understood them. He could contest the Elder Council's ruling, which would require him to argue against 12 wolves who had collectively lived longer than his bloodline had existed, using a legal framework that his own power depended on, and he would lose. Or he could rise from the stone. He had not risen from the judgment stone for anyone in 11 years of rule. He rose. He crossed the field alone, without ceremony, without the formal coat, or the crown's authority, or any of the things that usually walked into a room before he did. He stopped in front of Sera, and he was just a man, a large, careful, deeply uncertain man, who had spent 3 months being afraid of something real. He said her name, not her family name, not the rogue, or the bonded woman, or any of the official language the court had been using. Her name, just that. Sera. I know I have no right to ask for anything from you, he said. I know what I did, and what I didn't do, and I am not going to explain it away. I'm asking you what you need. I am asking because I don't know, and I should know, and I am asking anyway. Sera looked at the 12 elders standing behind her. She thought about 3 months on roads she hadn't chosen, in towns she hadn't planned to stay in, with a sound in her chest like something knocking to be let in. She thought about the ridge, and the moment she had turned and walked away, and how that had not helped even slightly. She looked back at him. I didn't need you to be afraid of it, she said. I was afraid of it too. That was fine. Fear was fine. But you left without saying anything. You didn't talk to me. You didn't release me. You just disappeared and left me bonded to a ghost. She kept her voice steady. I needed you to say something. Anything. Even if the answer was no. His jaw moved slightly. He nodded once. I know, he said. I don't need the elders, she said. They did what the law asked them to do. The law worked. The rest of this is between us. The field had never been so quiet. She reached out and took his hand. The bond mark on her collarbone, the pale, quiet shape that had been there for 3 months, went warm in a way she felt all the way to her back teeth. A faint gold light, visible even at distance, moved under her skin for a moment, and then settled. On the other side of his collar, covered for 3 months beneath expensive fabric, his mark did the same. 7 packs saw it. No one spoke. The elders returned, one at a time, to their positions behind the throne. Not because the matter was fully settled, not because everything was repaired, because a man who had been hiding behind his authority had finally walked out from behind it, and that was worth standing behind. That was the thing worth following. Sera was given no title that morning. She did not ask for one. She had not bowed, she had not recanted, she had stood in a field with her chin up and said a true thing out loud, and then waited to see if the world would adjust itself, and the world had. She stayed in the valley, not as a prize, not as a conquest, as a person who had made a choice with both eyes open, who was very tired of running, and who had decided, quietly, practically, without ceremony, that the door she had been standing in for 3 months was a door worth walking through. The bond hum settled into something softer, not gone, just quieter, like a second heartbeat finally beating in time with her own. She decided, standing there in the morning light, with his hand in hers, and 12 elders resuming their positions, and 7 packs trying to look like they hadn't just witnessed something they would tell their children about, that quiet was enough. Quiet was, in fact, exactly right.